Hi, in this lesson we're going to create the render pass. The render pass is wrapping up the whole pipeline or a few pipelines. The render pass is a series of steps a frame takes. It is considered of a series of subpasses. Our pipeline that we create in the next lesson will be the main subpass. We're not going to create any more subpasses in this course, but otherwise this is what is usually called post-processing, when you render out a frame and then you take another pass on that frame to create additional effects. So we start by going into the header, and before the graphics pipeline here, we will make a new method called createRenderPass. I will add a call to this new method inside the initializeVulkan calls. And we will need a new member field. I add the vkRenderPass member initialized to a no handle by default. Now in the CPP file, I will create the body of this render pass create inside our graphics pipeline region. The render pass handles the image. The image frame that we draw to is also known as a color attachment. So we create a VK color attachment description. We set the format to the surface format that we chose earlier. We set the samples to 1. Now we will specify a load operation. This is what will happen to the frame when the pipeline accepts it. We set that to load operation clear so that the previous image is cleared from the color. At the end, we just want to store the image so that it can be passed on to the swap chain. In some cases, some attachments may be used inside the pipeline only, and you don't care to render them anywhere else. In that case, you might not want to store them at the end. We're not going to have a stencil yet, so both the stencil load and stencil store will be set to don't care. The initial layout when the image is loaded is undefined. The pipeline will clear it out into its own format. The final format will be whatever is best for presenting to the screen. Now we need to create a color attachment reference. We'll have one color attachment or one frame, so it will be on the 0 index. We also set the layout to be the optimal for a color attachment. Now our render pass will have only one subpass, and this is our main rendering pipeline. This subpass will bind to the bind point for graphics. It will have one color attachment, and it will be the ref we just created. Speaking of which, I forgot the dot layout here when setting the color attachment optimal. Now, you're probably wondering what this color attachment is and how it ties to the pipeline exactly. Well, when we did our fragment shader, do you remember we did this out color thing here? This also had the words layout, the location equals 0 here. In the render pass is where we specify that our color frame will be bound to the location 0. This is what this attachment here means. And now that we have our subpass described, we can create our render pass create info. The type is written as per usual. Then we set the attachment count to the whole render pass, and we pass in the color attachment description, not to be mistaken with the color attachment reference. Then we set the subpass count to 1 as well, and pass in our main subpass address. After that, we call out the vk create render pass. We add the logical device, address of the info, no allocator, and the render pass member address. As usual, again, we We will exit the application if this command fails. We also need to destroy our render pass on the end of this. So I go to the destructor and I add the corresponding vk destroy render pass.